Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria, and I am joined by my best friend and co host, Miosha. Today, we're reviewing Married at First Sight season 15, episode 15. But before we get into that, please make sure you guys are subscribed. We are over 900. Thank you guys so much. We're trying to reach 1,000. So please make sure you subscribe and also check out our podcast. If you watch our reviews every week and love our dynamic, we do have a podcast with over 60 episodes. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can go ahead and pull that up, Girlfriends and Goals podcast, and listen to us. All right. We're going to go ahead and start with Lindy and Miguel. I'll let you start off.
Oh man, these two really exhausted me this episode. And I don't know if it was because it was kind of like they picked up where they left off at the retreat. And I was just
Yeah.
so over the retreat shenanigans that were going on with them two. So when they picked up there, I was just expecting for them maybe to be already back at home. And so
Right.
I get that they wanted to show us that scene, but we get it. They had a miserable time. So I say all that to say that I feel like both of them maybe have unrealistic expectations in terms of
Mhm.
like what's expected of the other person. So I feel like Lindy, I'll say, I think Miguel might not be reaching with some of her behavior. Maybe we just haven't seen it all on camera because from what I heard from the after show, she did admit that Miguel had up until this point kind of been carrying her and like managing her emotional outbursts.
Mm,
And so I think maybe we haven't seen all of that on camera. This is just, I'm going off what she said.
okay.
And so, but I think even with that, it's almost like Miguel is using this like consequence system fear to try to like get her in line. And so her reaction is, well, you're not going to control me. You're not going to control me. Um, and I don't feel like I should have to change. And I am who I am, accept me for who I am. So I think both of them have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Um, I just think maybe they're both being unrealistic. Like you marry someone at first sight, it's going to take time for them to get adjusted on both sides. But Linda, you might have to make some adjustments, maybe not change the entire person that you are, but if you are having these emotional outbursts and you're admitting to it yourself, then maybe there is some work to be done there. And then Miguel, she's not a child. So, and even if she was, it's like, you can't do this all like, oh, well, I don't know. I don't know. Like every single time something doesn't go your way, I feel like both of them are also overthinking
I
way too much.
I liked that Lindy said, I'm not gonna bow down to this man because I think she was trying to change who she was a little bit. I think she has
Mhm.
been, at least from the retreat episode, right? I think she has been trying to change a little bit, like with the outburst situation. I, at least last week, and well, no, not so much this week, but I did definitely see her trying to tame the outburst a little bit. And
Mhm.
so I don't think she's in the place where she's just like, you should accept me for who I am. I think initially she was, but
Mhm.
based on some of her behaviors last week, I think she was trying to come around. It's just that maybe Miguel is now pushing it a little bit too far. And I think she's right about, hey, just because we're having a bump in the road, that doesn't mean you should be so quick to be out. And I agree with her. I know Lindy is a little bit annoying, but
Mhm.
I can't stand a person who like at the sign of at every sign of trouble you're like, oh, this might be it. Like, what do you mean? You, first of all, you were in the wrong last week, so how is that the end of our relationship because you did something wrong and just need to change your actions? So I agree with
Yeah.
her two times. First with her saying I'm not bowing down to this man, and then next with her just being annoyed with him trying to suggest the end every time there's conflict. Like that's
I think it's more than suggest.
yeah.
I mean, she is walking on eggshells because
Yes.
he said it multiple times. Like, oh, well, I just don't know if this is it. It's like, why even we know decision day is coming.
Yeah.
So I wish he would kind of stop saying it because I think she already knows that, she's on eggshells.
Right.
So I don't understand why you keep saying it. Also, I feel like for what's been happening from what we've seen,
Mhm.
I don't know if that warrants this whole, well, I don't know if I could stay in this. Like, I get that it's a different experience, but it is a marriage. And I don't know. It just feels like his reactions sometimes, his reactions are calm, but they're big.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
he's
He's not
not.
yelling, but he is still being like almost like a little bit vicious, It's
Yes,
like
and it's strange too because his demeanor is very calm, and sometimes his facial expressions, um,
it's like no bark, all bite. That's what his stuff is. But yeah, I think it was interesting that maybe he's not understanding she really is trying to build her confidence in their relationship. So every time he says that, it takes away any type of like assurance she had that we're in this. And you can't really build a relationship like that if every single time, like, I feel confident in this, and then we hit a bump. Now my
mhm.
entire confidence is, because then that would put me in a place where I don't even want to have conflict, which is where she is. I don't even want to have conflict because my confidence is in the relationship minus conflict. And so if we introduce conflict now, then we don't have anything.
And
So
I will say if Miguel has been carrying a heavier load in terms of managing her,
mhm.
then I think they need to talk more about that, and he can't be resentful of her because he's decided to take that on
For 7 weeks.
for
That's
7 weeks.
in
Yeah.
an experiment that's 8 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't introduce yourself one way, maintain it for the 7 weeks of this 8 week experiment, and now all of a sudden be like, oh, well, I've been carrying it for 7 weeks. Yeah, you set that as the standard. So I don't really know what he expected. So she went to the gym with him. I don't know why, because she ain't do nothing. She looked like a fish out of
She
water.
was a cheerleader, remember?
She could have stayed home for that. And I'm not even like, this is no shade because I don't be know what to do in the gym either. That's why I do my at home workouts. I stay in my territory. But she was just standing there like, wow, you killed that. Great. And that was probably annoying for him too.
The way he was looking at her, like, girl,
Why are you here? And then we went on to them playing Dungeons and Dragons. That was funny to me because I think she was also a little bit annoying then, but at the same time, she doesn't know this game, and you could tell he was like, she made a joke at one point, and he was like, "Yeah, so what you do is," like, he just kept on going and gave
but
her
I feel
the
like that would be 90% of us who've never heard of this. Like, even when he was
yeah,
talking, I'm like, is he reading a
what?
cue card? Is he making this up? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
I was so confused, but I feel like she was a good sport about it. Once she kind of got the hang of, like, oh, you're like creating this storyline in your head.
yeah.
I feel like her and her friend were good sports. And I mean, Miguel, if you and your friend were annoyed with it, I mean, come on now.
She's a new
Y'all,
person learning the game. So what can
I
you
will
say
say, when she sat down with
with
her
her
one-on-one
friend?
with her friend, the friend looked exhausted.
She did. I wish I would have taken a picture of it.
She was just like,
Right.
are you done? Is that it?
Was that the same friend who sat down with Miguel, the work friend? I couldn't tell. I can't remember what the friend looked like.
I don't know. Yeah, the friend looked utterly annoyed and just like, okay, girl. I don't know how long they were talking.
It seemed
I
like
don't know
forever.
what that was.
It was Lindy. It was Lindy expressing everything that she hasn't been able to express to Miguel.
Yeah.
That's what it was, all her frustration. So, because if she would have done that with Miguel, he really would have reprimanded her. It would have been a whole thing.
And he had the nerve to feel some type of way that she would. And I'm like, all right, Miguel, so this is an area where you're being unrealistic because, of course, she's going to vent to her friends. You can't, none of y'all can really feel a way about telling their friends anything because you're on national television. The whole world is going to see what y'all have been up to and what's been said.
Okay, I'm of two minds. I understand Miguel saying that I understand him wanting to know what all was said.
I mean, wouldn't we all?
Right. Like, okay, so because nobody wants your spouse's friend looking at you crazy like so I understood his like curiosity. But I get why Lindy felt like she needed to talk to her friend and not Miguel. It's like, you need to handle me better when I come to you with these things. I'm gonna still talk to my friends about some stuff because that's what friends are there for. But
Mhm.
if I felt like I could be comfortable expressing how I feel to you the way that I feel it, then my friends might get less of my frustration, you know?
And they're just coming off of an explosive weekend.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Like if there were things from like weeks ago, the friend maybe wouldn't have heard as much.
Mhm.
But I think in the real world,
Yeah.
there is this expectation of, all right, you do have to be careful what you share with your family and friends.
Yes.
I think the difference though is that, like Miguel, you showed your whole behind last week. So the friends and family and all are gonna see it. So I
Hmm.
just think like you have to keep that in mind as well as this just a unique process. And the way the friend was looking, I don't know if she was all the way on Lindy's side
At
anyway.
all. She was looking like, Lindy girl, wrap this up. But he's concerned about not being viewed as a villain, which I don't know how bad he thinks the conversation got, but at least I don't think she presented him as a villain. I think it
No.
very much gave off the vibe that she was frustrated because of how their personalities were clashing, not him being a villain. So maybe if she could have reassured him that he wasn't the villain, but he can't take away her right to speak with her friends about her situation, about her feelings. Now,
Yeah.
sorry, to your point about like this is a show. I get that it's a show, but also if they're thinking about this as like their actual marriage, then I can. That's why I'm in between. I can see both sides of it, but he has no right to tell her she can't talk to her friends or be like, be careful how much you share with them. Like, I'm already being careful how much I share with you in our relationship.
Mhm.
Now you want me to be careful? What about then she really gonna explode?
Yeah, and I think all of us have the natural reaction to want our spouses to be seen in the best light.
Yeah.
So I think you're just also keeping that in mind. Like even when you vent to a friend, they know like, oh, that's not how this person feels in terms of the entirety of their
Yeah.
relationship and their person. It's just
Hmm.
this individual situation, unless you're just like in a toxic
Unless you're
whole mess.
Alexis.
Yeah, who can't wait to put her man down, but
Okay, to
we'll get
everybody,
there.
not even a friend. At least she says it to his face. I don't know. But
Anyway.
yeah, when Miguel said that he felt like he was in a two-faced relationship, I said, now Miguel, that is a stretch.
I will say though, when he sits down with his friends, I think he feels that way because
For
he
sure.
probably puts on about how great she is and how great the relationship is. So he may be expecting some of that in return. And she's like, no, I'm going to give the real, which he should have known that based off of how that first interaction with the what was it, the housewarming, and she just laid it all out there about the whole like,
Mhm.
oh, he didn't want to put me on the health insurance, he didn't care about that. So he should have known weeks ago that she was going to be transparent with, to a certain extent, with her friends. Speaking of health insurance
Insurance.
and name
Yeah.
changes, what do you think about that? She said, well, I might hyphenate it or whatever she said.
Okay, so at least as a viewer, it seemed like the understanding would be you do the insurance, I do the name. It seems like that was the exchange. So
Mhm.
if that happens to be the exchange, if that was the agreement, it does seem like she's going back on what she agreed to. But Also, I understand what she says when she's like, I want to feel more safe, because it goes back to him trying to run every time there's a conflict. Like, I don't even know if you're here with me for real. So, yeah, I'm not as comfortable. But then again, he's probably thinking, girl, I just put you on my insurance and that's costing me money. How much real do you think I can get? So, yeah, I have some mixed feelings about I have mixed feelings about them as a couple, period.
Yeah, I'd agree with what you said. The only thing I was just like, was when she did the whole spill about, well, like, I don't even care and I could be LOA, for the rest of my life and it's whatever. I'm just doing this for you. And when he said, well, you can keep it then. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like
And then they
if
played
if
the
you
dramatic music. So I was like, what does that mean? Like, did they resolve it or?
and it's like, girl, okay, if you're gonna take his last name or whatever, like I think you should do it from a place of like, oh, this is what I want to, not just like a contractual exchange thing. Like, oh, I got my insurance. Oh, I'll take the name now. It's okay, girl. Like,
Yeah, but I do feel it seems like Miguel thinks that was the exchange. And
I
so,
think they both did. And
yeah,
she was
so
giddy about it. Like, she's excited. Like, oh, I got my health
I
insurance
can
now.
go to the doctor now. Like,
Yeah,
girl, that is not something to be bragging about on national TV.
that, yeah. And, they're, I don't know. I just feel like they're comparing apples to oranges. So I don't understand why.
The name would have been in exchange for insurance.
That's silly to
And
me, but whatever.
I was gonna say maybe they should have done it the other way around where she changed the name and then he does the insurance, but that's also like I
They're
don't
not,
know. It
they're
should
just
have
so
been,
different.
yeah, it's
If you want to change your name, you do that when you get to a place of feeling secure. If you're in need of health insurance, and because like he could say no to you on decision day. So even when she was so excited about it, I'm like, girl, why? If this man says no to you in a week, in 30 days after that, you could be off of the health insurance. So it's not adding up for me.
they're not gonna say no. I think they're gonna stay married 1,000%.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if next week is just them talking to their friends, I don't know that we're gonna do a review. I mean, I'll probably watch it and see, but I don't know if we'll do a review until decision day. So, guys, just so you guys know that, if next week's episode isn't juicy, if it's just like them saying all the things that they've said all season long,
Yeah.
I don't think we need to do a review. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think they're both going to say yes on decision day though, and they're probably going to stay married. I was going to say they're probably going to stay married for like 2 years, but I don't want to wish that on them. If they stay married, I want it to
Child, we'll see.
work. All right, so next we can either do Sasha and Nate, or I think we said Kristen and Mitch next.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. So Mitch goes on a trip, and before he leaves, he's talking about he's ready to get back to single Mitch. Who is he? Single Mitch disappeared 7 weeks ago, my guy. He does not exist anymore. What do you mean? And so I was already like, I don't think that's how you should be thinking about this week away or weekend away
Mhm.
for work. It's married Mitch who's on a trip by himself. It's not single Mitch. So that was a little concerning. But I think with Mitch, and this is one of the reasons why I don't know that they are going to stay together. And I don't think that he's going to say yes. He is just like set in his 41-year-old ways, I think. And
Yeah.
so he was, I don't want to say he was itching for an opportunity to just get back to some sense of normalcy for himself, but it felt like that a little bit.
That, and it was with his work. And so he would have been engulfed in people who are all about the environment, his lifestyle. So that probably is some sense of like comfort, familiarity,
Yeah.
you know. So even though you're married now.
Yes. So he said himself that the the work trip was more social than work, but he did miss Kristen. So I put that was nice. I guess that he missed Kristen and Luna. When he came
Yeah.
back and didn't have the ring on, and she asked if it was in the car, and he goes, "Oh, I'm married again." I was like, "See now, Mitch, that's I'm pretty sure that's not how marriage works. But what did you think about him not wearing his ring and the reason behind him not wearing the ring?
So I'll say, I think Mitch likes to mess with her. This is like a part of his sense of humor. But I don't know that it always goes over well just because of how rocky they started. And like she said later, they keep hitting these waves.
Hmm.
So maybe under different circumstances, it wouldn't, she wouldn't be maybe as sensitive about it. But so at first I was just like, all right, Mitch, are you really that trifling? And then when he went on to explain it, I understood
I
because
felt like you would say that.
yeah, just because I put myself in the shoes of, okay, I'm going through this experiment. I don't know what his work situation is like, but from my previous experience, like if you get married, it's a big deal even for the people at work. Like, whoa, you had this big life change. Where's your wife? And how'd you meet? And they feel like they should be a part of your life in that way. They want to know all the details. So when he went on to explain, like, oh, I didn't want to have those conversations
Yeah.
like with the CEO and all that. I got it just because there is a unique part of this process in that like he could be saying no soon or she could be saying no soon. So why even open up that can of worms and then people at work could perceive you in a different way, even though they're eventually going to see it on national television.
Yeah.
If it's after the fact, it's like, oh yeah, crazy Mitch went on that show and whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But I understood why he did it that way. I don't think that he should have been as cavalier and joking about it with her because he already knows that this girl is sensitive. She likes words of affirmation. So I don't think that he should have necessarily done that.
Mm.
But I never thought that he was going to go on this work trip and like cheat on her, let his hair down and do the most. I didn't get that vibe from him.
She didn't either, apparently. And
Yeah.
I thought that I thought she handled it well.
Mhm.
But I also think it might be a little bit telling that he didn't want to get into it because I think he realizes there's a really high possibility of them not saying yes on decision day. And so if I were him in their situation, I wouldn't either. But again, that's because you would know, hey, we probably not going to be together next week. So why would
I
I
mean, she nominated herself for the most amount of divorces.
divorce?
So, I
And she
mean,
should. Honestly, I do not disagree with that at all. But
yeah.
yeah. So when they were at the table with Alexis and Justin, it seemed like she wanted what Justin wanted, which was kind of that assurance that he would be all in so that she could be all in as well. So that was the only extra note that I had on them. Other than that, maybe we should have started with them because I don't have much notes on them.
Yeah, I will say I even if they don't work out, I was glad to see that like the last episode and this episode, they seem to have a lot of fun together. The whole like surfing scene with Luna, like that was super cute. I just really want Kristen to make her decision not based off of if she thinks he's gonna say yes or no. Like,
Hmm.
don't say yes just because you feel like he's gonna say yes and
Yeah.
be all in. I will say this episode, I felt like he gave her a lot more words of affirmation, like, oh, I missed you or I cared
Journey.
about you. Like, he is definitely trying, it seemed, this
Yeah.
episode. But then you get to the end and she's like, oh, well, he's just not the type to say things he doesn't mean. He's not the type to lie about things. So, and then the way that she was saying, like, oh, something that she expected him to say, and he didn't say it in the way that she would have wanted. It was very detailed, like, oh, you're the most beautiful woman, and I can't see my life without you. And then
Yeah,
Justin
yeah.
goes, you expected him to say all that? And I kind of agree, like, girl,
You know who you working with. Yeah. But no, it is nice to see that they're at least on good terms. Like I think this will be a very
yeah.
amicable split. And I expect it to be a split. All right, should we go to Sasha and Nate? What?
One last thing about Mitch I'll say
Mhm.
is I feel like he's kind of like straight no chaser for the most part,
Yeah.
in that I don't think she'll ever probably have to worry about him lying
Yeah.
about how he feels. If anything, he's almost too open. And I think if she stayed, she would have to get adjusted to that. But
Hmm.
I don't get like, oh, I lie or I'm malicious about how I
Yeah.
feel
He's
because
not malicious at all. There's like no malice to him. No
mm-mm,
pettiness. Like there have been several times where if it were a more sensitive man where he would have been pissed. Like if this were Miguel and she had said that thing at the pool, or if this were Miguel and she would have, like certain things at the dinner table that one time,
mm-mm,
you know, this would have gone completely differently. So I do like that about his personality. I just think she would have to give up maybe a little too much of herself. Even though she's having fun with him, she
mhm.
would have to give up too much of herself to stay in this marriage. And sometimes people want to, and that's okay. But if I were her, I wouldn't. So that's
Yeah. All right.
okay.
Go on to Sasha and Nate. Sorry.
Sasha and Nate, beautiful outfits. Sasha also dresses
Mhm.
nicely. Loved her
Mhm.
house. What did you think about? So there were two big issues for them: the children, but then also Nate making her house a home for himself. Do you think, because Sasha, I'm sure, knows how she wants her house to look, do you think it's a good idea for her to be like, oh, I want you to have a say in it as well? Should she have just put the house how she wanted it and then he have to move in? What do you think? What's your input?
So I think an ideal situation is that because like a lot of these things are interchangeable, right? It's material stuff. So is it a hassle to change? Yes. Um, I think in a perfect world, she'd be like, okay, let's find something we both like
Mm.
on the knobs or whatever. Um, do I think that Stasha is going to be able to do it? No, I don't.
But and I also think it's understandable that she isn't. Now, here's why. She built this house or designed this house for herself, and it seems like after that she got picked for the show. So now she's having to adjust her design that she worked toward. But I do think it's a good thing that she's at least trying to give over some control, because it is going to be his house too, right? And he doesn't want to feel like, oh, it's just me. I think maybe she should find a different way of doing that. Like, okay, this room is solely yours and not just the garage, because there's no decor that really happens in the garage. That is shifty. But yeah, I think there needs to be some way of him feeling like I'm contributing. Like if and it's different between men and women, right? I don't think, like, how sometimes people say, oh, well, if this were a woman and the man had the house, wouldn't you guys want her to have a say? Yeah, I would, because it's not the same. Like, don't try. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same. But yeah, I think it's nice, and I think she just needs to find a better way. Like, if it's something that you already know that you want these specific, this specific hardware for your kitchen or for your doors or whatever, you already know that. Give him something that you haven't fully thought out yet, or something that you can give up. And it's not the living room or the kitchen. It's not.
Well, oh,
It's
okay. So
not.
look, I'm not saying I would do this,
Mhm.
but I personally feel like one, she should try harder. I understand that like she built the house and all that. Um, but I don't know. I think the whole like, oh, well, you get this room kind of goes back to even if it's not the garage, even if it's like, oh, this is your office, this is your little, it goes back to maybe him not feeling like this is ours
Hours.
and like I'm just a tenant here who like gets this little space. So look, I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that I would be letting him decorate my house either,
It's
but these are
hard.
other, yeah, these are other people. That's
Yeah,
in my life.
this is a tough situation, because like when you envision something, like I remember a friend of mine was planning her wedding, and she had like envisioned how she wanted it, and her husband had some input that really went against what it was that she wanted, and she's like, I cannot believe this man is trying to make suggestions about my wedding. Like, so if people are feeling that way about a wedding, a whole house that you've designed and that you want, I think she should have thought out before, okay, what things am I okay with him having input for, and what things can I like relinquish. But to his
And I
credit,
don't think that there are many things. So that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. Like the problem I have with her is this whole like, oh, well, we're gonna do it together. But then he starts listing things and she's like, no, no. Oh, don't even walk barefoot because the oils in your
To his credit, Nate knows. Like he said
you
it
do
all in
know.
his confessional. Like, I know she ain't gonna be able to give up this control. I think she expects to be able to give it up, but she's not gonna be able to give up control. Like he's very aware of what's
Yeah.
going on. And I think that's what's helping. That was the reason why this didn't turn into a complete blow up this episode, was because he was very realistic about his expectations with her and her house. If I were her, I might have been like, okay, so here's the house, like presented it to him after I have put all the finishing touches in. And just presented it to him, as opposed to like, because now she's really just faking it. And we all know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, girl, you know you're not gonna really let this dude do much. And even the
Yeah,
scene where he's like, hey, like we could lay some grass. Like the backyard was super small. She's like, oh,
that's
we
something she should have let go.
it's
That
like
let him have that.
that little backyard is not gonna take much to maintain it. Like I get that you don't want to do the work, but now that you have help,
A husband
and then you say you want kids, like where your kids supposed to play, girl,
on
on
the
concrete?
concrete, on the concrete. Okay. But no, I think that was definitely something that she shouldn't have. But honestly, that would have been her easy way out. Yeah, knock yourself out with the backyard, Nate. Have fun laying the grass and maintaining it by yourself. That way I don't have to, and it still looks pretty. Like she should have. That was her out. That was her victory in this battle. That right
Yeah, and I will say, like, I get what she's trying to do, present it as like, oh, this is our
there. Right.
home, but like she said, it's still my home. And
Mhm.
so I'll say if she genuinely like really wants to make him feel like, oh, this is our space,
Mhm.
she's not gonna just be able to relegate it just to like one room, especially with like her over the topness with like you can't
Everything.
do this, you can't do that, you can't like he's literally gonna feel like I'm a tenant in the house and I can't touch anything. So I think it's the decor, but it's also like all these rules and you can't do this or that. So it's gonna be an adjustment for him to feel comfortable anyways. And
Yeah.
then you throw on top of that, oh yeah, you just get this room right here and the house is however much square feet. Like,
That's so funny. Yeah. She probably should have gauged, asked him a question in the beginning, like, hey, what are there any rooms that you feel particularly drawn to decorating? Or yeah, just to get a feel for it. So that way when he talked about those rooms, it wasn't a big deal. But yeah, this is a hard situation. Like,
and another indicator for her, like I think he's understanding, but
yeah.
I think an indicator for her of like, oh, how much input he'd actually want is how he takes care of himself. He dresses really nice. You
Yeah.
could tell he goes to get his hair done. He presents very well.
His
So
apartment
like,
looked nice.
yeah, his apartment looked nice. So I don't know that he's going to be one of those guys who's like, I don't care, you go pick it out. Like it seems like he would actually be interested. It's like the friend you had whose husband was interested in helping planning the wedding. Like
Yeah.
that's like an anomaly. Like we all kind of expect, like, oh, this will be our domain, our thing. And then you got these random men who are like, no, I actually want to participate too.
Yeah.
You're like, what the heck?
Right. Like, can we, is it too late to go get another man? Because no, okay. So the next big thing for them was this idea of kids. So I saw what both of them were saying on this. I
Mm.
understand for Sasha, she's like, I still want us as parents to dedicate time to our relationship and to us. Like, yes, we are parents, but we're also people. We're also husband and wife, and so we need to nurture our children, but also nurture our relationship as spouses. And so I got what she was saying. I don't necessarily think she was trying to leave and turn up, or trying to be, like she said later in the episode, irresponsible. But I do think she has some unrealistic standards when it comes to children. Like, you don't think they're gonna mess up your carpet and your walls a little bit? That's unrealistic.
A lot of it.
Yeah, that's very unrealistic. And he's just like, girl, what do you think children are? You think you're just gonna sit them here and they stay? Absolutely not.
So I think that's a good thing that you brought up. What exactly are children? So I'd be curious to hear like what has been her experience with kids.
Actual
Like
children.
has
Yeah.
any of her friends have kids? Does she have small kids in her like immediate family? So it seems like she's kind of far removed as of like recently from like the experience of having small kids, not a 12-year-old,
Yeah.
but small kids in your home or just with you, period. When you're out and about, doesn't
Mhm.
sound like she's babysitting much. Um,
Girl, my nieces would literally take my every time I would leave the living room and come back out, all the pillows would be on the floor. And I'm like, I know we just had this talk yesterday. And at this point, I think they were maybe like 8, 7.
oh yeah, they don't,
You know, like they're just like, they're just pillows. Yeah, but it's a big deal.
So I'll say I heard what Sasha was saying. I also heard what Nate was saying. I agree with both of them to a certain extent. I think Sasha obviously doesn't want to lose herself maybe in motherhood and parenting. But I also think Nate, some of his experiences with his own mom may be showing through, and there's some fear there of like, okay, if you're a mom, you better be all in.
Yeah.
Like, let me this, oh, I kind of want to be a mom, but I kind of don't. Oh, it's an accessory piece to
Hmm.
the vibe I got going on. So I saw both sides. I just think combined with the whole expectations of like her home on top of lifestyle,
Yeah.
it seems like Nate might be more in tune with like the nitty gritty of having small children for
Mm.
like those startup years. And I think maybe Stasha just haven't hasn't had the experience recently of like how big the life changes. So I think for Nate, he's thinking the first like 4 to 5 years, like he said, like, oh, like I expect that we're going to be hunkered at home for the most part, which
Hmm.
is kind of true for most people. Maybe date nights here and there. I think when I heard Stasha thinking, I was thinking like, oh, is she talking about like a 10-year-old or a teenager?
Yeah, but she also has like the resources, so she can't. And I know families that travel with young children still and things like that. I do think her expectations as far as that were unrealistic, but I think he was trying to take it to the other extreme. And I
Right.
think there's somewhere in the middle is where they can find themselves. But I loved that Stasha was hearing what he was saying and that they made that connection back to his mom because she's like, okay, your mom was 23, I'm 37, and you're thinking I'm going to be out here irresponsible. I don't do those things before a child. I'm definitely not about to pick up doing them with a child. So I loved how throughout everything that he was saying, she was able to really like listen to understand and pull out some of those things and counter it with facts, that would hopefully ease his mind at some point. Like, I'm 37. Like, I haven't been 23 in 14 years, so
Yeah. And he never said like, oh, well, I don't want to have kids or
yeah,
even
was
delaying them. I
prepared.
also think for him, because maybe he is younger and he didn't enter this process expecting like, oh, within a year I'd have a baby. I think for him, he's kind of caught up in comparing his current lifestyle with the drastic change that will happen and it happening sooner rather than later. So when he kept saying like, oh, well, her idea of fun and what's fun with kids, I'm like, yeah, Nate, I do hear you and I get it because it will be different. I just think that for him, he's kind of honing in on like, hey, I'm not going to be able to move and shake how I used to,
Hmm.
which is true. So like your idea of fun and traveling, it will all change
Yeah.
on top of like he's kind of doing it, I think, sooner than what he's signing up to do it sooner than what he anticipated. So
Yeah, I mean, somebody had to change and change their mind, and she can't. She probably doesn't want to wait much later. But I will say, I think between the two of them, there is a good balance. So I think this isn't a bad thing that they're not seeing eye to eye on certain things. I think there's enough balance where all the points will be considered. Like, hey, we need to have some fun, but also we need to make sure that we're spending a lot of time at home. Or, oh, this is gonna be a piece of cake. No, girl, it ain't gonna be no piece of cake. We need to. So I feel like I see where the what the point of their arguments are, and I think the fact that they have conflict in this just says that they're covering their bases. So
Yeah, I do. I will say, I just if they pull the trigger on having this baby, I just really want Nate to do it because he really wants to and not just to please her.
I mean, he eventually wanted kids anyway. He's 34. Someone put in our comments that Sasha is pregnant now. I don't know. I haven't seen it anywhere else, but somebody did say that. So
Yeah, I mean, I hear that he's 34. I just also want him to be doing it because he gets to a place where he's like, this is what I really want right now
mm.
as well. That's just what I want for her. Like,
Do you think like is your fear that he is your fear that if he does it at a certain place where he's not right? Okay, let me say what I'm thinking. I don't think he would do it just to please her. I think he would, just based on what we've seen of Nate and his personality, I think the reason why we're having these conversations is because he's not going to do it just to please her. I think he just
mhm.
needs like the confidence in their plan moving forward to say, okay, let's pull the trigger on this.
Mm,
That's just the sense that I get. Either way, I think he'll probably be a good parent, maybe trying to overcompensate a little bit for what his mom wasn't to him. But I think
mm.
that's why it's so important to him is because he takes that so seriously and he will think about everything before he has it. That's the sense that I get, but we don't know these people. So
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's why I just hope that that is the case because I don't know.
yeah.
Um,
Um Alexis and Justin.
Cha.
Alexis, she did the thing again this episode where we all know that's not what Justin is saying. Why are you acting like that's what this man is saying? But let's start from the beginning of the episode. So Maya done bit somebody else, dog, child. Maya's a problem.
Yeah, because y'all got her at this doggy prison.
I mean, yeah. So Maya bites someone else's dog. Justin has to go. Actually, that's not even where the episode started. They were still at this dog on retreat, and they're in the car driving.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, I heard Sasha and them talking." And I was like, "Man, I wish I could be freaky and stuff." And I was like, oh, now we're about to put him on blast. And just when I thought it was getting bad, it got worse. Yeah, he's like, I do need to work on my stamina. It's been a while since he did. So at least we know for a fact that she didn't enjoy it. But
But
he's like,
he said it only happened one time. And if it happened more than one time, she would have called him out.
yeah. So the stamina thing that he acknowledged. And then he was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to get in the gym on those machines. And I didn't write it down verbatim, but she said something like, do they have a machine to help with your stroke game? That was so rude. Like, why would she do that to him?
Because she is hell bent on embarrassing the heck out of this man. Like
Like,
at that point, I'm just like, I don't care if Alexis says that she's 100% in. I don't care if she has a turnaround. The fact that she's doing this man like this, I want him to say no. He absolutely needs to say no. And it's not because, of all the other things, it's for this specific thing.
just this one thing. No,
It's
but
like why it's mean.
yes, but I can't believe I'm about to try to defend her. But they do say it feels like the cameras aren't even there sometimes. So maybe she wasn't thinking, oh yeah, everybody's gonna see this. Maybe this is just how she corrects. Because sometimes I can be like sometimes I could be like that where I'm like, okay, well, that's not working. Can we try something else? It is a sensitive topic though, so I don't know that I would do it for this, but maybe she just forgot the cameras were there.
So out of everybody else, she's the only one who forgets that the cameras are there.
I tried to help her. That's all I have. But either way, it was really mean. I was like, Dad, why would she do him like that?
And and then why? So another thing, why connect it to a conversation about another couple? So it just feels like malicious. Like if you want to have those conversations, that's fine, but
Yeah.
bring it up in a way it's like, hey, I want to discuss like how this went and maybe how things can go in the future.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. But this whole like, oh well, I wish I could have it good like that too.
There are times where I know they know they're not filming. So I think I just, if I were her, I would have been cautious about saying that on camera. And that's not to say she has to fake it, but the way that you talk about things, like when he said, "Oh, I'll have to get on the machine." Do they have a machine for this? Just say, "Hey, can you do this differently?" Like, don't. Yeah. So it was pretty mean. Like when I was watching it, my mouth was wide open. I was like, "Did she
No, oh my God, no.
right. Oh my god, no. Why did you say that to him? Yeah. So that was messed up. Um, and then so he has to go and get Maya now. And
That was the worst.
his friend Chris comes down to get Maya, which that's a good friend to drive 17 hours to come get a dog. Because you know that would not be me, but I'm also not a dog person. So yeah, so I thought it was really sweet that Chris took Maya, and I'm glad that Chris's wife, maybe a
Mhm.
significant other, was so open to it because he really needed it in that moment. Um,
That was so sad. I cannot believe. I'll let you go. I'm sorry. I'm into
no, no, you're fine. Because something that Justin said to Chris, he said, "Yeah, I told Alexis I might have to come out there once a month to see Maya," and she was
it.
like, "Once a month." This is all what Justin said, but I'm like, girl, the one who's out every weekend, you're thinking once a month is too much to go see his dog. But either way, she shows up eventually, and I thought that was sweet of her. I think she should have been there throughout the entire process, maybe. Um, but the fact that she showed up and said, I didn't want you to go through this alone, I thought was nice, and I'm gonna give her the credit for that because there's
Well,
nobody else
okay,
to
okay.
credit
We'll let you give her that credit.
her
But what I think would have been even more nice, it would
for.
have only had like a week left, right? Like it's 6 days, 7 days, or
Yes.
whatever. So what would have been even more nice would have been for her to be like, oh, maybe we will board Newton for a little bit to
Mhm,
like balance it out a little bit, or maybe send Newton to my mom or
mhm.
something, so then Maya can come stay with us. We'll get through decision day. So to me, that would have been even more nice.
That would have been yeah, that would have been nicer to do, because Newton has places that Newton can go. Newton's not biting anybody.
And it sounds like her family is local. It's not even
Her
like,
friends too. Remember on the after party one time she said, "Oh, if he had friends nearby, me going out probably wouldn't be an issue." So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that would have been nicer. Uh, where I can't give her credit is when they were having a conversation and he says, I want you to see, like, this means a lot to me to
Mm.
send Maya to live somewhere else, to give up my dog. But he's really trying to do what needs to be done as a man, as a husband, yada, yada, yada. And she says, yeah, it means a lot to me, but I don't want it to mean everything. I understand not wanting it to be thrown in her face, though. I get that. Like, don't do something for me if you're just going to throw it in my face. But I thought she was kind of missing the point. I think
Yeah.
he was saying, and she did this later on, and when she did it later on, that really got on my nerves because I'm like, that is not what that man is saying, because he's like, I feel like I just gave up my dog. So if you're gonna say no on decision day, like, I think you could have at least let me know so that I wouldn't have given up my dog. And then she responds and says, um, "So because you gave up your dog, so because you gave up your dog, now I have to say yes on decision day," or something like that." She said. I'm like, no. What he's saying is, if you're not gonna say yes on decision day, why did you just let me give my dog up? Like, I need some reassurance from you.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching here, but I feel like there may have been some level of reassurance Because for him to request a friend to drive that far, pick up a dog and take the dog for good, that's what it sounds like. There had to have been something there to where he felt like there's a good chance of us saying yes on decision day. But
Right.
then later on, he's like, oh, well, I was looking for that reassurance. So then I thought, well, you didn't get reassurance before
Before.
you called Chris. So that leads me to think that maybe he did, but then something else may have shifted with her energy to make him want to have assurance again, like, okay, now the dog is gone.
Yeah.
Let me know that we're somewhat still good. So I'll say I feel like I think Justin feels like he got played, but I'm gonna say that I don't think that he did. I think he kind of played himself
Okay.
because he up until this point he's seen enough of Alexa's wish-washiness that he should have known that she cannot be trusted. Even from the situation with Ben and Morgan, he should have known like this girl can't be trusted. So I think was he played? Yes, in that Alexis has gone back and forth and like kind of giving him nuggets, but then pulling back, kind of acting one way in front of the group and then acting a different way when they're together. I feel like she's been all over the place. In that regard, I think he's been played. In regards to the dog, I don't think so. Because I don't think after everything that he's seen of Alexis and that we've seen of her, that he should have ever trusted to send his dog away for good.
Hmm.
That, like, bro, you kind of played yourself with that one. I don't think she's innocent at all. I would even say I feel like she should have went to him just like as like a woman, like, hey, I don't know. Like, don't
Well,
I expected her to go to him and be like, don't send your dog away.
she didn't say I don't know, but apparently when he asked her, she said, "I told you I'm in it. I told you I'd be patient." What does that mean? What does that mean? Because that doesn't say anything. But to
Mm.
what she said about like because she was talking to Sasha. I don't know if this is an excuse, but she's like, I'm still at work, and he's texting me while I'm at work. I'm of two minds with that. One, I'm sure y'all have texted while you're at work before, but also like, okay, if you can't answer it at work, just be like, let's talk about this when I get home. Like, you don't have to be fake about it.
Something tells me there was something prompted him to ask that again.
Common sense.
Maybe he had a dream about it. Or maybe it really hit him once the dog was getting
Yeah.
in the car and he was like, I need to ask him. If he didn't ask her flat out and got a straight answer before he had Chris drive that far,
Hmm.
once again, I don't know, Justin, that's kind of on you. But I would say Alexis, like, girl, you I don't want to say like she sat there and let him do it because he's a man of his own will.
Yeah.
But I think if she would have flat out went to him and been like, I don't know, I don't think he would have sent his dog away on a I don't know. Or would he?
I don't know.
We don't know. I
um,
will agree with you though. He can't hold it over her head. Like, bro, you sent your dog.
right. And I don't think he was trying to use it this way, but
No.
he definitely can't be like, "Oh, I sent my dog away for you." Like, okay, I can still say no on decision day, because that was a choice that you made. And then when she was speaking to Sasha at yoga,
Hmm.
um, she said something like, "Oh, yeah, so we get to a certain place, and then he reverts to old things." It's like it's been 8 weeks
What old things were so bad?
that
I
he
mean,
reverts to.
yeah, we still don't really have the answer on that. Even these outbursts, I don't think that they were so extreme because she didn't spend much time talking about
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I think it's just one more excuse.
So with Kristen, with Kristen and Mitch, so they're like, "Oh, how was your week?" And Justin's like, "Well, I sent Maya to live with my best friend," and Alexa's gonna say, "Oh yeah, that did happen."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Girl, what? this man is torn up about this thing and you forgot it even happened. The fact that she said it out loud too, like I would have thought that maybe, but when she said it out loud, I was like, dang, that's messed up. But then also when Mitch asked Alexis, which was funny because Alexis is usually the one putting people on the spot.
Mhm.
But when he says, is 90% good for you, good enough for you? And Justin said, nah, so proud of him. But he was like, nah, to be honest, that's not enough for me. But also, everybody was trying to act like, oh, but 90% is better than zero and the 10%. And everybody was a mathematician at the table. But my question is, Alexis, would 90% be good for you? Because remember a few weeks ago when she was like, well, if you're not all in with me, then you might as well choose somebody else.
Mhm.
What happened to that person who said that? But now you want him to accept the bare minimum. So yeah, I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't feeling that at all.
Yeah, I agree. What'd you think about his one-on-one session with Nate?
Where Nate was lifting the whole time and he wasn't. Um Nate never misses an opportunity.
I know.
So Nate
I know.
was all the way team.
She's a
I think
liar.
Alexis is just a liar. She's dishonest. She probably cheated too. She like Nate never misses an opportunity. But I like that he was able to be transparent with Nate. I like that he said he took his emotions out of it and was starting to put two and two together, which I think he started to put two and two together some weeks ago because we mentioned it on the podcast, but then they slept together. And I think that might have changed things for him because he's like, that was a big deal for me. And so I think that was where he like reverted and now he had to reopen his eyes to see
But
like,
if you put two and two together, why you sent your dog away? Like what?
I don't understand.
I don't, it's like either somebody's lying or Alexis is that cold-hearted. Like
I
which
don't think she's cold hearted, but I do think certain things she might say. I think she knows what she wants to do. She's just at a stage where she maybe thinks he would overreact if she said it to him flat out, because she's always talking about how she's concerned about him being too sensitive. So I think that's where it is. I think she does need to just flat out tell him, but she doesn't feel like she can for whatever reason.
mm,
So I don't know. And I think it is a little bit of a maturity thing to just say,
mhm.
hey, full transparency, this is where I am with things. And I do plan on saying no on decision day. And yeah, maybe she's just not at that stage of maturity where she can just let him know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. The way that she's been conducting herself, I hope that Justin says no. Just off the, like one, I want him to be with someone who's all into him, but
Yeah. And
also if she,
Alexis deserves the same thing, but she also needs someone who she can be into. And that's not Justin.
yeah. Oh yeah, they definitely both need that, but then also someone who isn't going to take every opportunity to put them down, be overly direct in some ways to kind of hurt his feelings or tear him down.
Or
Also
not even
have
just
this
not care about his feelings. Like,
yeah, have this superiority kind of complex in terms of like how she's able to act and manage her emotions and whatever. So for that alone, I just want him to say no. And I
well, he
want her
probably
to
won't. I hope
girl.
they have her go first because if she say yes, he's gonna say yes. But I saw on the Married at First Sight fan page that it seems like someone might reverse their decision within 24 hours of decision day. And so I'm really curious to see what happens with that.
They both need to say no.
They really do. They really do.
Yeah.
But I don't think I don't know. I hope Justin says no, but
He said he was a 90% no. And I'm just like,
where's the other 10%?
that and you sent your whole dog away. And I don't know, for me, her energy just seemed like, meh,
Yeah. Her body language, people on Twitter were saying her body language, like her back was turned to him when
mm-hmm.
on the couch. I don't know.
Girl, you came home not to comfort him, but just do what?
Just to be there, to be present. Like she's going through the motions. she's like, I showed up for you to be here for you. I gave you a hug. But how comforting was she being? I don't know.
Yeah, not at all. I'm mad this dog got sent away, and I hope Chris will send her back.
Okay, yeah, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
we'll see. But we might not see you guys next week because it's just them talking to their friends about whether they should say yes or no, and then they're doing a decision day dish with past season people.
Mhm.
So the next time we see you guys, will probably be after decision day. If we're at 1,000 by then, which we probably won't be, unless y'all
Yeah.
go ahead and give us the likes. I'm sorry, give us the subscribes. But if we're at 1,000, then we can go live and actually interact with you guys and discuss decision day. But if we're not at 1,000 yet, then I guess that's just something we'll have to do in season 16. But please go ahead and help us toward that total. We're trying to get to 1,000, and check out our brand new podcast episode dropping Friday at midnight Eastern time. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.